Lacey Stewart,
Finley Whitman,
Clarissa Sparks,
Jody Black,
Anaclet Tavares.
okay. So I'm going to be the group leader this week, and the first question is, what is religious freedom?
the freedom to live according to your conscience without persecution, and to be able to act on your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's a little more to that question too, if I'm reading it right. It says, are you someone who feels strongly about an unseen source and or feeling that cannot be scientifically proven? Believes that these feelings and experiences make up much, if not all, of your individual identity, and allows these strong feelings and beliefs to dictate your decisions, attitudes, and behaviors.
These are the questions that she later posted saying, like, did I just describe someone who is a super religious person, or did I just describe someone who is like LGBT or something, right? And she's like, it's a trick question because it identifies with the two people, but it's just interesting how like one is fighting for everybody to live according to how they want to be living and how they want to be suited, basically, and the other ones are just fighting for like, well, what am I doing? What do I believe in? What should I do? What do I believe is right or wrong? So that religious freedom, like Jody was saying, yeah, it's the freedom to basically worship who you like and worship on your own way without being discriminated. And even though I thought it was interesting with this whole reading, I've been really confused basically on what the lines are, and I think I posted about it on my discussion, but I've just been super confused lately with what the lines are, because I feel like everybody is just fighting for what they want, and they're taking away basic human rights, just like religious freedom. So if anybody has some input on that, that would be great for my brain.
I thought a lot about that as well, sorry, but where the line is, and I think the difference is, right now in America today, you can join a church that totally hates Black people, and we can live and let live, but we can't do that in regards to sexual issues, or at least that's the way they want to go, and so I think that's the difference. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes. My insights about what religion's freedom is that it's a fundamental human right, and that protects the conscience of all people. We have to remember that. It allows us to think, express, and act upon what we deeply believe. One frequent mistake is to equate freedom of religion with the freedom of worship. Um, Even some American policymakers now have spoken of freedom of worship rather than freedom of religion. So basically, like, freedom of religion is much more encompassed, is more complex. It includes the rights of worship, observance, practice, expression, and teaching. Broader construct or construct. For example, this might include wearing religious dress or symbols, observing the word of wisdoms in our case as a LDS, but if for other religions or other beliefs is observing dietary restrictions, how they call, but we call it word of wisdoms, or participating in rituals associated with a certain stage of life, processing property rights regarding meeting places, and maintain the freedom to manage a religion's institution. So it's kind of like a misconception and is a frequent mistake. Sometimes we tend to commit when we talk about freedom of religion and freedom of worship.
So I too had a hard time reading it because I feel like there's valid arguments for both sides, unfortunately. I think it really comes down to, and like the lady, the florist lady, we watched the video about her and we read some things about her. She had diligently served and even employed same-sex or like gay people. She had employed them and worked with them and stuff. But when it came down to marriage, something that she held sacred and something that we as a religion also hold sacred, that's when the line was crossed. And I feel like she handled it very well. She was very positive and very loving about the way she said something. She explained why she couldn't do it. But I feel like because our beliefs are so intangible, what we believe can only be felt. And it can't really, like, I can't really take my heart and give it to somebody else and say, this is what I feel, I just want you to understand, and then give it back to my, like, put it back in my chest, because that's just not how it works. And because of that, the difficult in explaining what we believe, and because of the trickiness of the adversary, it really does come off like we're bigots. And it really does come off like we don't want to, that we do want to discriminate in a very negative way against same-sex marriages. And that's just not the truth. That's just not the truth. And I think that when we enter into a setting where it's going to become necessary for us to defend those beliefs, that we do so in a very loving way, and we do so guided by the Spirit, because otherwise there's no way we're going to get our point across. And even then, we may not get our point across. Even then, it may not be understood. But it is our right to be able to discern for ourselves how we want to support. And we're not hurting anybody. We're not trying to physically hurt anyone by, not serving at same-sex marriages or whatever. But it is part of our beliefs and part of our conscience that we not participate. And so we need to be aware of that. And we need to be able to follow the Spirit when it comes to discussing that, because it is hard to explain, because we don't necessarily have outward evidence of those things.
Yes, it's a very sensitive topic, or decision to make. Like you say, it might be personal. You have to, look for an answer. You have to pray. But let me put it in a different way. We all doing the marriage and family studies, all right? And tomorrow you might be a marriage counselor. If you face with a couples, all right, like a sex and marriage couple that will need like a section with you to strengthen the relationship, because the relationship is going to, downhill, would you be able to serve them, or you just reject them, say, no, I don't want to deal with that? Go.
I would probably reject, but in a very kind way, where I would simply say, this is my belief. I may not be the best therapist to advise in this. You're welcome to stay and we can try, but I'm just advising you that I may not be the right one qualified.
Yeah.
But I should have the right to do that. And likely they probably wouldn't want me. And they have the right to not want me. No force.
Yeah, and that's when it gets confusing, or at least confusing to me, because you have the right to decline service to who you feel is not apt for your services, or who you feel like you can't help them. But then they go around, and even though there's so many other people that can help them, they want you to be forced into their niche or something,
But the reason why I'm saying that is because they're already married, all right? You support them to the process to get married, and especially if they have a kids involved, and the child is suffering because of that situation. When you turn it down, how you feel personally? Know that you could help the child involved in that relationship.
You can't help everybody. The parents may not be, most likely you're not going to get through to the parents to even be able to help that child. You got to pick your battles.
Yeah, I think the same way. I don't think that you in that situation would be able to help the child, just because the child is under the parents' responsibility, and the parents teach their children the way that they want to be taught. So I don't think that your beliefs will be in accordance to what the parents believe, so the child is not going to be helped in any way in that situation.
Okay.
I agree. It all comes down to just choice. I mean, there's simpler things that we have rules for that people follow and aren't fighting. Like restaurants can refuse to serve you if you're not wearing a shirt or shoes. You know, like people aren't getting mad about that. You have the choice. If you don't want to wear a shirt, nobody is forcing you to wear a shirt, but you can't go there. You chose that. There's 100 other places that might serve you. And so that's where people get so caught up with everything. It's that they feel like we're forcing them to do something, but we're not. If Jody says, I'm not the best counselor, I don't feel like I would be the best counselor for you, it's not saying that I don't, agree with your choice and that it's wrong and we're going to force you to not do that anymore. It's that, I don't feel that I can help you in the way that you probably want to be helped, but there's plenty of other people out there that can. What really bothered me this week with the reading was, I think it was the case with the florist and how they had like that lawsuit and the couple just listed all the damages that they had, like fear of if they made the right choice and anxiety and weight gain. And I'm just thinking, like, seriously, if like one little choice like that like has offset your life like that much, like you have bigger issues to be focusing on than who's going to be your florist. Like, it's ridiculous. And it's just like Pandora's box. It's just opening the floodgates for everybody to cry unfairness. And in every single example, they've listed how many other businesses would make cakes for them or, flowers for them, and they could pay for it 20 times over. And it's like, why can't you just accept it then? Like, why can't we just choose? It's crazy.
Yes, I think like with the florist is because what happened. The couple felt like discriminated. That was the reason. Because when I was getting married, I went to one of the best florists in the town, and she said, "Sorry, I can't do that because I'm caught up." I believe if she say that, it would be no problem. Of course, she couldn't. She should lie. But the reason is not, is the way they declined. The guy felt offended. That's a big difference. Like I said, if she said, "Oh no, I have a lot of orders, I can't do it," for like my schedule is really busy for the next 3 months. I'm really busy. I can't do it. There would be no issue. But because he felt discriminated, that's why he came up with the big deal. I'm pretty sure there were more than dozens of florists in the town or surrounding area he could go to. By the way he felt. I'm not saying the way he felt is right, but I said the way he felt that what caused all this issue. It's not, like I said, it's just because he felt like he just being discriminated.
Right. And I mean, if there was, a couple, I'm going to choose some of my words wisely because I have young people in the room, that wanted to open their own business and serve, similar couples, and they, rejected a heterosexual couple, then, you know what I mean? Like, that's their choice. And, I feel like everybody's so caught up with wanting, everything handed to them on a silver platter. Nobody said that it was going to be easy, but as long as they have the choice to live the way that they want and that they can still get served with what they want, but it may be hard for them to find somebody to do that. I mean, I feel like that's perfectly okay. Like, it's, nobody said it was going to be easy. I mean, that's what makes us all different. And, I feel like that's part of the challenge of this life. And everybody's just out crying that they just want everybody to cater to them. And it's so funny how quickly they can just, be so one-sided and narrow-minded on themselves, and they don't even start to explore the possibilities of the other side of it.
Well, and on the other side of that as well is that she shouldn't have to feel like she has to lie. She has the freedom to say, this just isn't something that I feel comfortable doing. And to say, and to make up something, because I thought of the same thing. Well, she could have just said she was busy, but that's the point. She shouldn't have to say that. She should be able to say, this isn't something I agree with. And people are going to get offended, and that's just life. But people can get offended all they want. We can't correct people. We can't change the way people think or the way people feel about certain things. That's been proven time and time again in history. But the point is that we can advocate and lobby for laws to protect business owners that have certain Christian beliefs and don't believe in serving certain people that have different beliefs or go against with what they believe. And I think that those rights should be protected. That is part of being an American. That's part of why we even came to America, was so we could make those decisions and be free to make those decisions. And people are going to be offended. People are offended by me all the time with silly decisions that I make all the time, or silly things that I say or whatever. But that's my right. And the consequences is those people aren't my friends. And that's fine. That's life, and that's just how it goes. And you are free to choose who you hang out with. And if you want to hang out with people that offend you, that's your prerogative. But if you want to hang out with people that want to be around you and want to serve you and believe what you believe, that's also your prerogative. And so I think the point is that it's not about changing people's minds or changing people. It's about making sure that there are laws to protect those that have certain beliefs or that have any belief, to protect everybody that has a belief and protect their right to stand up for that belief and live according to that belief in their own country and in their own community.
I totally agree with all of that and would defend in the same way. I'm just really excited to get into the next chapter that talks why sexual orientation is different than race. Because when I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate, and everything that I think about is like, well, what if you were just to substitute race into that instead of sexual orientation? Because I don't know how it's different.
Yeah, I guess with all of these comments, there's just so much going through my mind. Like when Lacey was talking about, I don't exactly remember what you were saying, but the song from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory came in my head, the one from like, I want the world, I want the whole world. And I feel like those are like the gay couples that they really want to just take over and have everyone forced into what they want them to do. And I'm like, that didn't end well for the girl, so it's not gonna end well for you either. But then another thing that I think about too is when Finley was talking about the different people and how easily offended they are. You can never please everybody. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures that it's like a mule, a man, and a woman. And then like the mule is on its own and the man and the woman are walking, and some people are criticizing that, like, well, they can just ride the mule. Why do they have to walk the whole way? Or sometimes when it's like the woman on the mule and the man is walking and it's an old man, they're like, oh, that woman should let the man ride because he's an older man. Or if it's the man on the mule and the woman is walking and she's pregnant, he's like, well, he should be riding the mule she should be riding the mule because she's pregnant or something. So you can never please anybody. Everybody's gonna have something to say. Like, nobody's ever satisfied. And I know that even if they did have, or if these people did win the battle, they're always going to be looking for something else to fight for. They're always going to be looking for someone else to tear down, someone else to sue because of something, because they want the world to fit them. They don't care about everybody else's standards or beliefs. And that's like the hard part of this lesson, that I just don't know how to fight that, because it's a sensitive topic. And it's the hard part about being an advocate, I guess, knowing how to treat these things in a very sensitive way.
I agree. If anybody wants to answer on that, I'll leave it open for a minute, or if not, maybe it will help us kind of lead into the next question here. Okay, so the next question is, why are religious individuals mocked for the source of their belief system?
I think that one also goes into what Finley said earlier, that it's not a concrete thing that we believe in. You know, it's something that we feel. This is a gospel of the Spirit and how our hearts and our souls make us feel. So when we don't have actual facts, or we can't look into, or we can't look at the actual thing that we're trying to explain, then people are like, well, that's dumb. That's just something that you think, and it's not something that's real, kind of a thing. So I think that's where the mock comes from, because they're like, well, you're just dumb for thinking those things because you don't even know if it's true or not. So
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot. When I thought about that question, I thought about how a lot of people, when they make the decisions of what they want right now, it's all them. It's me. It's what I want. And I think it's hard for them to comprehend that we believe, that somebody else, that Heavenly Father is, governing, what we believe. So I think it's hard for them to wrap their mind around, oh, you're letting somebody else. I think people look at it like, oh, you're letting somebody else control you. You're letting somebody else, tell you what to believe or tell you how to be. When I look at it as the flip thing, because it's like, okay, if you want to look at it that way, if you want to say that, Heavenly Father's controlling me or what I believe, but then you're trying to control me. You're trying to tell me what. So all we're doing here is flipping the role. It's not anything new, but, I don't think that they even stopped to think of it that way. And so it's actually kind of crazy, because then it ends up turning, kind of hypocritical. But then at that point, they don't want to hear that because they're in control. Nobody's controlling them. This is how they are and how they feel, and it's all them and nobody else. So
I think common decency really needs to take place, because I honestly think it's okay in your mind if you want to mock it. Just like I might, like, didn't the book say something like the yellow dog? Did you remember that in the book, a reference to that? Okay. Personally, that's the extreme. I just think, whoa, no way, that's silly. That's, like graven images type thing. And I can personally think that, but that's where common decency comes in. You don't go to a Jewish synagogue and preach all about Christ and how wrong they are. We just have common decency. And so if we don't agree, we just think it in our own head. No public mockery.
Yeah. I believe there are so many reasons, why religious individuals are mocked for their source of their beliefs system. And because reason does not work on someone commits to being unreasonable. That's this is the primary reason. All right. I'm going to repeat it again. Because reason does not work on someone commits to being unreasonable. Also, because they lack of knowledge. I remember when I was before my conversion to church, was back home. There was a bunch I used to call white missionaries or whatever. They used to, to go. They used to send a lot of missionaries from the U.S. to my country, and I had some friends that converts to the church, and they tried to bring missionaries to my house. I said, dude, it's a pointless, No, this church is fake. Come on, you don't see it? It's just white guys trying to brainwash you. They said this book is the first right here on the cover is the most correct book in the world. Do you believe that? What about the Bible? This is just a crap. So, like I said, lack of knowledge also, might make you mock other personal, beliefs or religions. So I used to mock the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints every day for years, but just because I didn't have the knowledge. Every time they try to teach me, I just put a stop right there. No, you just a bunch of white guys trying to brainwash me. So it happened. So like I said, people in a religious individual be mocked for different reasons.
I also think that, lack of understanding. has really affected our society. The idea that we get what we want when we want it has also had a big influence on why religious institutions are mocked. Because if a religious institution, like for us, we don't believe we can drink. To some people, that's ridiculous. We should be able to choose to do stuff like that. And we can. You can drink if you're LDS. You can do that, but prevents you from going to the temple, prevents you from being worthy to do certain things within the religion. But the point is that a lot of people, yes, they don't understand, and a lot of people don't want to understand. But I also think that it comes from wanting, I think Clarissa mentioned this, the world to mold to you instead of you kind of trying to understand the world. And that's why a lot of religious things are mocked, because we do have some traditional values. We do have somewhat old ways of doing things compared to what's going on right now in the world, and that can be very confusing to people. And people don't like to be told what they're doing is wrong. And religion does that. Religion's like, well, you probably shouldn't steal. Not a good idea. And well, the laws say that too. But like certain things, like they say, like the church doesn't believe in same-sex marriage, and people don't like to be told that what they're doing is wrong. And so that's another reason why I think people, because I think some people do know, but they kind of fight back at it because they just want to do what they want to do. But yeah.
So it says, based on what you've learned thus far, why is religious freedom important? And so when I thought about this question, I thought about the short video that we had to watch where it talked about the systems of society and how religion helps people learn to want to follow the rules of society, like on their own. It was kind of amazing how the guy, I forget the name of the guy that was in the video, that said, you know, how the society structures start to fall when people aren't taught, you know, how to value things and value rules, and how there wouldn't be enough police. There's never going to be enough police if people, you know, don't learn to choose for themselves and to follow the establishment of, you know, society themselves. So again, it all comes down to choice. And, you know, that's so important, because I feel like with everyone just wanting to accept everything, there is no choice. Agency's taken away. The innocents want to just brainwash us to all just be the same and to just, you know, anything goes. You can't, you know, you can't be different, and it's just chaos. That's what I got from the video, and I just thought he was spot on when he said, you know, the more freedom you try to give people, quote unquote, you know, the more chaos there's going to be, and there's never going to be enough people to control that and keep it in check.
Yeah, I also wrote that down. It was Clay Christensen, right, in the video. And I wrote the very last thing that he said, which said, if you take away religion, you can't hire enough police. So that was kind of really impacting on me, because like, religion is the basic way that we learn ethics and morals. So it's right, like there's no way that we can, I believe, like, of course we as parents can teach them whether we're religious or not, but like this gives them a sense of like, not a negative guilt that you're like a bad person per se, but like a motivation to be better. And if you do feel that guilt, then you can be better because of, let's say for us, the atonement, or let's say for like Catholics, like you confess your sins or something. So like there's a sense of belonging basically when you're in a religion. And it's the basic, well, of course the family is the basic unit, but it's like the next best thing for someone to feel like they have a family. And that's where you learn how to love, how to have like your basic human rights. I'm thinking, like, I don't know, there's like a whole jumble of things, but if we don't have religion, then basically we are taking away those special teaching moments from our kids and from our families, and it would just be a disaster, like you were saying, Lacey. And yeah, that guy in the video explained it super well. So
I was thinking about how in the Book of Mormon they stone the prophets and things like that, and eventually all of it is just driven out. And there's a part in the book that talked about big media and big business and all of that big government being able to drive us all out, like how they wanted to abolish like going to certain places, Indiana and different things for the, I forget what it is. You guys know what part I'm talking about. Anyways, eventually I think that's what totally can happen to us is we're threatened. I think if we lose the majority of people who have good values, we're just going to be shoved out. We can't, but it seems like it's going that way, and that's why we have to advocate for good values. Because as soon as we're the minority, we're going to be like the prophets who are cast out of the city.
Okay, I'll lead into the next question because I feel like that's kind of a good spot right there. So it says, what do you think it means to have special legal protection, and why does religious freedom deserve special legal protection? And I think Jody kind of touched on that right when she was ending, because if we don't stand up for what we believe in, we are going to be pushed out and shut out. And when I was reading all those examples this week of, what we've been learning about the last couple of years with adoption clinics or agencies closing down, or, passing their, cases over to other agencies because they're being forced to either comply with, rules of, adopting to same-sex couples, or, they have to close down because they don't believe in that and to be, quote unquote fair. And like, there was the question that we had to ask or answer with, why should the church be worried? And I feel like because the church is everywhere. We are everywhere. We had adoption agencies, we have schools, and with religious freedom being attacked, it could get to the point where everything has to be shut down. I mean, we have the honor code and rules, for BYU Idaho that all of us sign each, semester, saying that we agree that, we're not going to do, certain things and stuff. And, I just see it as it only being a matter of time before people start to try to attack, our schools and saying that, it's discrimination. And again, it kind of loops back to the first question we talked about, with people being able to they should be able to have the right to choose, what rules they want to have at their school. And if you want to comply with those rules, then you're more than welcome to be a part of it. And if you don't want to comply with those rules, that's okay too. I'm sure that there's, plenty of other schools that will meet your needs. And if we don't fight for that, it's
So um, I think that the religion freedom is deserving of special legal protection, first and foremost because it is in the United States Constitution. It is not something dreamed up, out of the shadows of the Constitution, like some of other rights that are banned about. This is one, um, is the first part of the First Amendment. I think it was the very most important liberty that the founders were concerned about, along with the free speech. And so it's deserving of special legal protection because of them. Yeah? Also because of the Constitution in paramount position. It's fundamental to our sense of to identify as a nation. In our founding, we depend upon the religions and moral principles. Um, the regard of dignity of man, it's a religious principle. It is our constitution. It is also in the nature of our citizens. Private sector, like hospitals, schools, universities, and so on. So you guys mentioned, and from the video clip that the guy said that if it was for religion, we could hide enough. There's not enough place to be hide. That's true because we, as when we have a religion belief, we think twice before we do something, especially especially if the things we know it's wrong, because we have like I said, two things that we gotta be afraid of, not just the state law or federal law, but if an individual is not a religion person, doesn't believe in God or whatever, if he's trying to go steal something, he only think about being caught by the police and the consequences, go to jail. All right. But if he doesn't get caught, he's good to go. But if you believe in God, even if you don't get caught by the police officers, you are being caught by God. You know what I mean? You have it in your conscience that what you did was wrong. So um, like I was saying, most of the founded by religious organization and the charitable impulse that we have as a people that extend to the matter of foreign aid, all over of nation policy, those come out to religion. So a lot of the laws that through the constitution that we find in the constitution came to the religion, to the source, the main source are from the Bibles or the religious perspective. The laws we have today. So some people don't recognize that, but that's true because it's a very powerful principles and laws that we can find through the scriptures. So I have a question. It's kind of question. It's kind of like also a concern, or I want to understand more about it. Since I mentioned Constitution, since I mentioned we talk about freedom of religion. What's your idea? What's your point of view? Because we know that people claim the United States Constitution is the oldest in the world. A lot of countries follow the model. All right. So, and we know that one of the amendments actually the first amendment was a free religion. But why the pioneers, okay, the LDS pioneers, why they didn't feel protected when they had to move from the United States when they were persecuted in 1848 or 1850s? Why the religion, why nobody did anything about that or about Constitution? Because when they moved to Utah, and Utah at that time was not U.S. territory. So if they said our First Amendment is to protect, we have religion freedom. So what happened in the 1850s? Why they have to leave the country? Because they believe. So where was the law? It's something that while I was reading this, I keep pondering. So I want to hear your insights because I don't know much about U.S. history. So I want to know your insight.
I think our protection lies in the majority. We were the minority. It's just like vaccines. When we all majority protect ourselves, we're protecting others. As soon as we become the minority, I think it's so damaging because there's nobody else to stand up for us. And so if the majority is going to do things that are wrong, righteousness and good things simply cannot prevail. And I think losing freedom of religion is the gateway to losing all of our rights. Look at North Korea. I mean, I would say that their religion or the force is basically to worship their leader, you know? And so if we're gonna, that's kind of a random tangent, but I just think that majority, I think being a minority is what makes you vulnerable.
Yes, I understand you talk about minorities, but what I'm saying is that I think I know they're trying to gain the political power. That's why they were persecuted. But if you see, like, the highest law in our land is the U.S. Constitution. Some amendments, known as the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights guarantee that the government can never deprive people in the U.S. of certain fundamental rights, including the rights of freedom of religion. So it's kind of like they contradict each other. They say, no, we don't care about this law anymore. You got to get out of the country. So they have to leave the United States. It's worse than Hitler in Germany.
In the end, it was the Constitution that protected us, though. And so while there was a difference, it was the Constitution that did bring it around to protect us.
And I'm going to go as far as to say that maybe the government wasn't as involved as it should have been or even could have been. I mean, let's look back. You're saying the 1850s, okay? That's over 150 years ago. They didn't have the technology that we have. Everything was, communication for what was happening was through letter, through horseback. I mean, by the time letters for help were sent out or even to, Washington, D.C., and people came back, a lot of people had already taken matters into their own hands. So I think maybe that the government, could have tried to help in more ways, but there was just a delay, if that makes, is that making sense to you guys? Like, it was so different back then. There was so many less people and there was less communication and ways for help to be sent out that I just feel like it was different. I feel like the pioneers left because they knew that the help that they needed wouldn't be able to come in time and instead to all be, killed or, they decided to, to move out of, the 13 colonies for
I understand that. Yep, I understand that. But it seems like it's the first time I heard that in the United States, that people, will violate your rights and you still get away with it, and then you can move. You can't do anything. Because the First Amendment was created with the founders for it. Years, hundreds and hundreds of years before that. Like 400 years or 300 years. So and the First Amendment of the United States Constitution says that everyone in the United States has the right to practice his own or her religion. And these people been doing it, violated their rights, and nothing was done. They had to leave. That's why I was like, oh, wow. It's kind of like those people that violate the law, they were rewarded by doing that, and there was nothing done. And they have to. It's kind of like you have your house. You bought your house today, and your neighbor said, you know something? Because I don't like the pink house, I'm gonna kick you out of here. And you just get your kids and leave. And it's your house. You have the right to stay in their house, and the Constitution protects you. So it was kind of I was kind of shocked. I understand what you're saying. Maybe I think the reason is because the government was interested. This is the truth. The government was interested. They were looking for power. So, and there was this I think is the main reason why they didn't intervene. Because this is the law. Law is right there. So, I was kind of sad to know that the United States, the U.S. government, U.S. Constitution, which they claim is the best in the world, is the model and a model for everywhere in the world. Your own son and daughter have to go to another country because U.S. territory, Utah was a U.S. territory because of the religious persecution. I was like, ah, that's the model. I'm like, okay, yeah. Sometimes they hide those things.
So at that point in history, the Constitution had only really been around for less than 100 years. The Constitution was in 1700. This is the 1800s that this is all going down. The country was still really new. We had also said in the Declaration of Independence that humans have certain unalienable, like we were still a young country and there were still things going on, and like Lacey was saying, communication was scarce. So government officials probably only heard what the people that were against the church were saying to them. And so anyway, it does suck. It was awful that the church had to go through something like that. We were still a really young country, and those rights were still, Americans were still learning about those rights and learning about how they can fight for those rights and how different religions can stand up for what they thought was, for their religion or whatever it was. And so at that time, it was just hard. Like now you can post on social media and everyone will rally around you. Back then you couldn't do that. You had to post a letter on a guy on a horse to get it to somebody else. And so it was just really hard for to government to really understand what was happening. And yes, government officials did drive LDS people out, thinking that they were causing a disruption of peace or this or that or whatever, and using other laws to prevent the LDS from settling there. And so I think it was just a lot of not really understanding the law, one, or the constitutional rights, and not really understanding the religion and what Mormons really wanted to do. They thought the Mormons were taking over, and they weren't going to allow that.
Thanks. Does anybody else have any other comments that they want to say about why they think religious freedom deserves special legal protection? So this will kind of lead into the next question here. So is there a contradiction between religious freedom and free speech, and how do you balance the two?
I do not see a lot of conflicts between freedom of speech and freedom of religion, to be honest. Basically, religious people rely on religious freedom, and they also rely on freedom of speech to be delivered their message. And if someone else criticizes religions, they do on their freedom of speech, pretty much. And there is no religious freedom to be free from criticism, of religion. So I don't see a conflict there. What I see is a conflict in is the freedom, all right, which is a part of religion freedom. Of a religious leader to say, for example, to say that some particular country or some particular public policy is not pleasing to God, or something, or the nature. So, and then the person on the other side of that, the person criticized says, yeah, well, you are interfering with my civil rights to advocate my position, or you are offending me and I have a right not to be offended, or you are criticizing me and I have the right not to be criticized. That is where the collision comes. But I don't see, like I said, like a lot of conflict between the freedom of speech and freedom of religion.
I think for me, the biggest thing when I look at this question is with balancing the two. Like, I feel that people should be able to practice their religious freedom, and they should be able to speak freely about their religion and what they want to do. And when it comes to the balance part of it too, I think it comes down to how you say it. I think I should be able to promote what I believe in and why I believe in that and how it works for me. I think once people start turning it towards attacking people and why they shouldn't do something or why they are wrong or why they are condemned, you know, and when the words of your speech start to turn that way and they become, you know, hurtful and harmful to others, I think that's when the line has been crossed. But I think, you know, in balancing, I think that we should be able to freely speak the things that we believe in and how we live our lives. But we need to be cautious in the way that we, you know, talk to others. And we should make sure that we're talking to others and not talking down to others.
I think that another part of it, going back to a video we watched a couple weeks ago, well, the two videos about the two guys who were giving talks, and how the one religious guy's talk was very condemning, and it was very strongly worded, and that can be really hard to digest, even as a religious person. That type of that type of speech is really hard to digest. And I think that you know, we are free to speak what we want to speak, and we are free to worship how we worship. But I think that part of being a country is remaining united and using those freedoms to unite the country, using the way we speak to people to unite different parts of this nation. And I think that there's not really a contradiction there. I think we as a religion allow people to say what they want to say and think what they want to think, and believe what they want to believe. But I do think that there is, like Lacey was saying, a way to talk to people and a way to get your point across that is not condemning or condescending or anything like that. And so I think that they do need to be balanced. That if you walk into a room and say, whoa, 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 what you're doing is you're all gonna go to hell. People aren't gonna want to listen to you, and that's very strong word. Those are very strong words. And so I think that being able to understand when it's appropriate to say something and when it's not appropriate to say something, it helps you balance those two freedoms.
I don't know, this is a hard one, because again, if you play devil's advocate, you know, I can come into somebody bad and be like, you are just totally vile for living the way you do based on my moral standards. Just look at pornography. They don't view it as vile as all. And so sometimes we need harsh words, because sometimes there are, based on what our own moral guiding thing, it can be totally vile or totally wrong. And so that's just a hard one, because I think where the line crosses is when we use our speech to make other actions. I don't know, but I feel like we do use our speech advocating to drive actions. It's just we can't force them, you know? I just think how we're using our freedom of speech, and I really strongly believe that people who have abortions are murdering their baby. That's really strong. That's really harsh. And so I don't know where that balance comes, because there's going to be huge clashes, and we're not always going to be able to say everything nicely.
But I think you did a perfect job of saying that, Jody. You said, I think that people who, you know, have abortions are doing this. You're not saying you're a murderer. There's a way to say it. I mean, you're basically saying that, but you're not. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well,
so I think so you're still, and you should have every right to say, I believe this, and I believe that people who do this are doing this action. But, you know, there's a way to say it the way that you said it exactly. Again, I have 4 people in the room. But, yeah, instead of going, you're a murderer, but, you know, rewording it kind of takes some of that off, you know, the plate. And also not only, I mean, that's a horrible thing to do, but we want people to know and understand that that's not all of who they are. If they did do that one time, you know, and not one time is too much, but what I'm saying is that that doesn't just make up who they are. There's every other aspect. And so again, we're trying to take that labeling away from everybody, because that's what this has all been about with everything, whether it's religion or abortion or, you know, what you want to do for a career. It's the stigma of just labeling somebody, you know, as they are, and just condemning them to that, and that's all they can ever be. And so
I know that explanation helps to process all that I just said. That was good.
Yeah, I think if you just really bring it back to it's about you, because if people get offended, then that's on them. That's how they're feeling. When you're saying, this is what I believe in, I have no control over what you believe in, but this is my feeling on it. And if they're getting a response, you know, out of that, that is on them. You know, maybe they must feel guilty or something, you know, something is triggering them. But when you say, this is me, you don't have to think that. You can think that doing an abortion is perfectly okay. I don't think it's okay. And I think that this is what it equals. But as long as you're not going around saying, you know, you're a murderer, you know, you should have that freedom to say that. And that's where it's a lot of like what Ryan Anderson talked about, where we should have these discussions, where we should be able to talk about the stance on it, and what defines abortion and what is right or wrong about it. And we should be able to say, I believe in this, and they should be able to say that they don't believe in that, and that the people should be able to vote on it. That's what it comes down to. But I think when you really just turn it around and you kind of use like I statements, it makes people a lot more, while this topics are heated, I think they calm down a little bit more, because you're not pointing the finger in their face going, you're wrong, you're evil, you're bad, you know, when you say I, it takes it off of them, like, oh, okay, you know, it's them, not me type thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's live and let live. That it comes all the way back to that with the I statements. That was good.
Good.
Okay, I'm going to go on if nobody has anything else to say, because I think we have a few more and we're almost out of time here. Let's see, I can't leave off that. So it says, how would you respond to those who accuse religions of pushing doctrine on those not of their faith? I think we kind of talked about this a lot in like some of our responses. I don't, you know, it all comes back to how you say things, and you can express your religion and our doctrine without pushing it onto others. I think just by, you know, I would say that we have the right to be able to verbalize what, you know, we believe in. But it's up to you to choose if that's for you or not for you. Just as I believe you have the right to say the things that you believe in or don't believe in. And that's up for me to decide if I want to believe or accept that. So I don't know if I'm reading into the question right here, but that's kind of just how I'm looking at it. I don't know. I'll let somebody else take over.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was that was saying it, but it's kind of like how they kind of twist it, and then they're trying to push onto you what you should think, instead of you pushing on them thinking that you're pushing onto them what you have to think. I think it goes back to the question that we were talking about, who is controlled by who. And I think it was you, Lacey, that was saying how like people think that we're being controlled by someone else, but then they're trying to control us by saying, well, you shouldn't be that way. You should just do this instead of blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of funny how both sides are just fighting against each other. So I guess in response to people who are trying to push their faith. You just have to be respectful of what they believe in too. Because when I've been to the pageant over at Manti, and whenever it's the temple pageant, like a ton of people just form outside and they're protesting against the church and trying to tell you like their beliefs are wrong because Jesus Christ did this and he wants us to do this instead and you guys teach this and blah blah blah. And all I can do is say like, okay, thanks, bye. Like I just don't try to pick a fight with them because it's pointless. They're not going to change their mind. I'm not going to change my mind. So it's going to be an endless battle kind of a thing. But the best way to respond to these people is to just be respectful and understand their point of view and be like, okay, thank you for that. I hope that you can respect my points of view as well, like I'm respecting yours, and that's it. Bye.
Yes. I think this question needs to be taken very serious by the religious leaders. We cannot enact religious doctrines. We cannot require that a prayer, for example, that is pleasing, to one religious group, be adopted in the school system and are required to be saved, for example. All right, that's approximately, what the Supreme Court denounced in the school prayer decision several decades ago. Religion leaders should always be cautioned that they are not advocating enactment to their own religious doctrine or their own religious practice into law. On the other hand, it's important to remember also that most of our family law, most of our criminal law, most of laws that deal with ethical behavior come out from religious principles, like I mentioned earlier. It is simple as not true to have that we have no religion principles in our law. It seems like she's, hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Are you still there?
All right, it seems like Alicia was talking at the same time.
No, I wasn't talking.
No, I was talking to my husband. He just came in, but I thought I was on silent. Was I on silent?
All right.
Yeah, I thought I was on
That's
silent.
fine.
I wasn't talking to you guys. Sorry.
So, like I was saying, like on the other hand, most of our family law, most of our criminal law, and most of laws that deal with ethical behavior comes out from religious principles. It is simple, not true, that we have no religion principles in our law. The law is full of them, from the Judeo-Christian heritage going back to the Bible, the Old Testament, and the New Testament, and the principles set out there are the base of much of criminal law and some of the private law. So they are no set of religion principles, but they are come from religions. So, like I said, we have to be careful and caution as a leader of the church to not mix up our own beliefs, with our public. So we have to be very careful of that. So pretty much is my response, how we cannot push, doctrines on us with different faiths or beliefs.
Does anybody else have any other thoughts or comments that they want to share on this one? Okay, I'm going to move into the last question, and then after that, we're going to have Finley do the summary. So the last question is, what do you think it means that the law needs to curb religious expression when there is compelling government interest by the least restrictive means possible? It was mentioned on page 109 in our reading.
I'm so sorry. I thought we would be done by 11:30, so I have to take my daughter somewhere where I promised her, so I have to say goodbye.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
see you next week.
Okay, bye.
Clarissa, are you talking to us? Okay, you're not talking to us. Okay.
Sorry, I was rereading the question because I don't seem to understand it.
I think, I don't know, is this the one that Ryan Anderson was kind of talking about a lot in that video where he was saying that, you know, the government needs not to be involved, or at least in the least amount possible? I don't know.
I don't know why I'm not understanding this question.
I know, it's kind of a weird one.
Yeah, I'm having like a hard time wrapping my head around it. So like if I'm understanding it correctly,
I think
is
the
it
best answer. I think the video, I think was 90 minutes about the one of the what you know the channel, or I don't know if it's NBS or it's one of the channel. Ryan is going to give them was talking about it. Pretty much it says how the government. I actually it was about the florist lady, you know, they're talking about, because they respect them, they respect her family. So some laws, you know, the government has to intervene, because, for example, I think they asking about the Muslim something, if they go like to the restaurant or whatever, if you're gonna kick them out. You know? But it's something like you have to do. Like for the florist lady, she had a license. Right? She went to the city hall or whatever, she got a license to open her business. And the license is for the public. That's why she got sued. There was no restrictions on that to say no, you cannot provide your service to gay or to black people or whatever. There was no restriction when she applied for the license. What was in case, you know, was her value, because she's LDS, she cannot support the gay marriage. So that's why he talks about the compelling government interest in least restriction means possible. So in this case, what they advocate is that, can the government create some law to protect like this lady so she cannot be sued next time, or another person or another individual that's trying to open her business but cannot serve certain type of person or individual? So pretty much, if you watch the 90 minutes video clip, it addressed this question here. It's three or four of people that discuss it from the channel or whatever. It's about 9 minutes. So Ryan pretty much addressed this question.
Okay, that's how I looked at this question, with more of kind of going back to that video, and I was trying to reread page 109 to kind of see where they got it from. I think it's just worded kind of confusingly, but I don't know. Finley, do you have any other remarks, or Clarissa, anything else? Okay, well then we'll just go ahead and wrap it up, because we're way over too. So we'll have Finley do the closing remarks, and that's it.
Okay, so we talked about that religious freedom is our freedom to worship who and what we want to worship. Those are part of our constitutional rights as Americans. We talked about how some of our beliefs aren't tangible, thus it's hard for people to understand why we believe these things, and it's hard to sometimes enact laws to protect those types of things when people have things that are more tangible and more concrete in their lives. So we also talked about that a lot of religions are mocked for the source of their belief system, because it's not understood. A lot of people don't understand what religious institutions believe, and therefore they're mocked. We talked about that religious freedom is important because it allows us to conduct our lives in the way that we want to conduct them. It allows us to live according to our own moral compass. We also Lacey talked about when we are when we are using our freedom of speech, there's a way to word things that that we believe in a way that it puts it on us instead of the other person, and by using I statements, and how that's likely the most effective way to get our point across. And so then people are able to understand us a little bit more, and that our statements, we're not name calling, we're not using things that are going to be directly offensive, but we are simply stating our beliefs and things that we hold dear to us. And so that's how we kind of can balance religious freedom and freedom of speech. We also talked about how we respond to the accused religions of pushing their doctrine on us, on other people. I think that it just comes down to letting people choose, and we talked about that and how we yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to read my notes here. So we talked about, I think that was it. I'm trying to discern my notes here. But yeah, we just talked about how the freedom of religion is important, and that we need to keep fighting for it, and that it's not just about restricting or discriminating, but it's really about our rights and what we hold dear to us instead of a restriction.
Okay, thank you. That's good, yeah.
Awesome. Good job, guys. We did it.
All right, perfect.
I'm stopping the broadcast.